Hey Juan, welcome to this podcast episode with Buildify. And how are you doing?
I'm very good.
Awesome, great. That's great to hear. So basically, initially would like to know more about Exabits. If you could share like a short overview about what you guys are working at Exabits actually.
Yes. Um, so we launched in December 2021,
Okay,
and we have very high performance NVIDIA H100 and now H200 on our network that provides compute service um, fully from the start to finish for AI training and AI inference for various customers, both in Web 2.0 and Web 3.
okay, okay, got it. And also while we were researching about Exabits, we saw that you guys are tokenizing the compute power basically, and it also allows users to become the stakeholders in the network. So can you like give a overview about this? Like how does the tokenizing actually works? Like if you can share.
Yeah, of course. So our tokenomics, it centers around providing a compute pool funded by node investors, then tokenizing the GPUs to lower the cost barrier for individuals so that anyone can take part in the value accretion of compute over time. And the compute pool can either directly serve enterprise level AI customers, or they can be used to lease the GPUs to subnets. And the amount of
Okay.
compute allocated to each subnet is proportional to the number of GPU tokens staked in the ecosystem. And in terms of the tokens, we have a two-tier token system. Hashtag EXA. EXA is a governance token, which
Okay.
grants holders the right to vote on various proposals and projects within our ecosystem, and as well as access to all the management fees and related tokenomics that accrue to exhibits.
Okay.
And then we have our second token, XBIT, and that's our utility token. And it provides holders a one-to-one right to consume compute hours on our network. And one way to describe this utility token and what it represents is it's roughly like a vacation timeshare across a large hotel network.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Also, I saw that Exabit says that it reduces 80% of the computing cost and is also the cheapest among the centralized companies like AWS, Azure, and etc. So, can you explain like why is actually Exabit's 80% cheaper in terms of compute?
Yeah. So first off, if you try to get an allocation of a sufficient scale volume of compute from high-end chips. You go to AWS or Google Cloud, and oftentimes they're on a per hour basis. The dollar figure can range somewhere between $10 to $14 per hour per chip, and
Okay.
that's vastly more expensive, about 7 times what we're currently charging today. And also, it depends on the duration of the agreement and the volume of compute that you have in the service agreement. Um, and a lot of that is because these big tech companies and the traditional cloud providers, their biggest customers are actually themselves.
Okay.
They're what they're after is building the next competitor to ChatGPT. And so when you have scarcity of compute, you're largely competing for your own internal in-house development. But we don't have anything like that. We're just a pure compute providers. We're not building our own AI, and we're only in the business of selling compute to other developers.
Okay.
Secondly, at the beginning of our launch, this was a time when the crypto market were in bear markets, and so a lot of these Ethereum rigs were idle because the prices didn't justify the kind of power that had to be consumed at these idle data centers. And
Okay.
we were able to extract and repurpose the Ethereum rigs so that they can be useful for practical applications in AI. And a lot of these Ethereum rigs, in terms of when it comes to cooling, management of the data centers, the broadband access, and all of these components are much more cost efficient than they are for really high end, T1, T2 data centers, usually built bespoke for AI compute.
Got it. Got it. So basically, I'm also curious about one thing. Like at Exabits, when you say that you provide compute, so do you guys have your own inventory or how is it actually?
Yeah, so it's a combination of having our own assets, but also having exclusive rights to manage assets and chips owned by third-party investors.
Okay.
And I briefly mentioned the vacation timeshare example to give an analogy for what are utility tokens, what they represent. If you think about Marriott, so Marriott Hotels, now owned by Starwood Capital Group, a very large hospitality private equity fund,
Yeah.
is probably the largest hotel chain in the world, and they have the most number of hotel properties across the world. Um, they actually own less than 10% of the hotels that they manage that are part of their network. And
Okay.
a lot of this is because when you actually own and operate your own the hardware and the assets, including chips and GPU businesses, the very high capital intensity really takes away from your margins. And so everyone understands the real value add is in the actual technical expertise and your operations know-how of how to manage and repurpose these hardware and the devices so that they can be useful for various AI applications. And that's a space where that we operate in.
Got it. Got it. So also one more thing, like recently I saw that you guys integrated 4000 NVIDIA H200 GPUs in your cluster or network. So could you like share more about that and like its benefits and all those things? Just overview actually.
Yeah. So TEE, that stands for Trusted Execution Environment. And it protects users' data starting from the chip level and up. And by supporting TEE, we enable user-owned AI, which is crucial to the Web3 ecosystem. And currently, the TEE is supported only by H200 or Blackwell systems in the GPU cloud industry. And its use is incredibly complex, requiring extensive technical effort. So our support for TEE really not only demonstrates that our GPU capabilities are at the forefront of the industry, but also reflects our commitment to user data protection and privacy.
Got it. Got it. Also, just one more question, actually. So, as you also know that there are a lot of decentralized compute companies who are providing compute decentralized way. So, I won't name anyone actually, but I'm just curious, like, then how Exabits is like different from them, if you can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, so first, we're proud to say that we are the core provider of the actual chips and access to compute to a lot of these decentralized compute players in the ecosystem. So we like to see ourselves as being quite upstream, or in the Web3 language, we call ourselves a base layer. Everyone really
Okay.
depends on our chips to run their businesses, and a lot of them, we see them as strategic distribution partners for us.
Okay.
Um, we're technically, the distinction is that, and we don't hide this fact, our compute service and hardware comes from a highly centralized, coordinated, traditional physical infrastructure. So none
Okay.
of our chips are spatially distributed. And a lot of that is because technically we found out, even before ChatGPT was revealed in 2022, because of our long-standing experience commercializing edge computing
Okay.
for large telecommunication companies, that when tried, it really just doesn't work. The physical decentralized aspect of running the chips for serious enterprise grade level AI compute, it's not feasible. So for us, the decentralized aspect that's very meaningful is in the tokenization and ownership.
Got it. Got it. Also, like coming back to the whole trend scenario. So basically, you would also have seen a lot of hype, a lot of discussion, noise around DeepSeek specifically. Like a lot of people on Twitter are saying that China is going to surpass US, or this race is won by China, this and that thing. So, what is your take on the whole DeepSeek scenario and the open source AI models?
Yeah, sure. Um, Yeah, so there's been a lot of drama, especially in the capital markets, starting from Monday. and it seems
Yeah.
like things have really calmed down a bit. But um, to summarize, I think there are three messages that are sort of conflated. So one is on the volume, or people call the Javin's paradox. So I'm an economist, and I think I find that description an overkill for something to really just describe economies of scale, right?
Yeah.
So when you bring down the unit cost per compute, in the case that Deepseek is widely known for only spending $5 million compared to hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, to train something like OpenAI's ChatGPT. So when there's an incredible efficiency on the cost function, you have large volume, right?
Yeah.
And we see this in the case of energy consumption. The world has been consuming more energy per capita over hundreds of years, and largely because energy exploration, extraction of fossil fuel has just become incredibly efficient, right?
Got it.
So like in the palm of our hands, the iPhone now has chips that are more powerful than the chips that we use to send rockets into space and send the Apollo mission. But
Yeah.
that hasn't slowed the world down in terms of consuming more and more chips, correct? So I think
Yep.
that volume argument, that's a very straightforward one. And I think people are starting to realize, just because you have an invention of something a lot more efficient doesn't mean the overall aggregate volume of consumption for compute, will go down, or will be lower than what we expect. In fact, I think it's going to be much higher. The second piece is regarding NVIDIA in particular, not the chip industry as a whole, but NVIDIA, because NVIDIA, they're monetized. So they provide about 90% of all AI chips bought in the world and consumed for AI training. And so they effectively have a monopoly on the market. And the
Yeah.
question has been, if with this advent of an incredibly efficiently trained AI model, does that lower the hurdle of entry for different entrants into the marketplace, and give a bit of an advantage to players like AMD, for their hardware? And the answer is yes, right? The answer is yes. So
Correct.
what efficiency in terms of eroding the monopolistic power of NVIDIA, I think that's certainly true. And I think we see a lot of that, in the way their stock price has been hit this week. But for us, we pride ourselves in providing and building the infrastructure for very high-end, high-performance chips. But then again, we're hardware agnostic in our service, so we can service
Yeah.
AMD chips, we can service TPUs, and any other new chips that come out. So we're not bespoke to NVIDIA. So I think for
Okay.
us, it really doesn't affect us. Now, the third point is, I think they've taken the whole DeepSeek spotlight, the decentralized players in the market, because as you gave the question before, a lot of the competitors in the space, they pride themselves in having actually geo-distributed chips, right? Decentralization happened, in an operational dimension, and they're taking the spotlight on DeepSeek to make the argument, look, this is good news for us. It means
Yeah.
cheaper compute, sort of, or lower performance compute is actually feasible. But I sort of push back on that narrative, because at the end of the day, even if DeepSeek was trained on only 2,000 chips, let's say, I know there are some arguments around whether or not that's really true. Maybe the number is much
Yeah.
higher. But if it were trained on 2,000 H100s or A100s, that's still on a centralized traditional platform, albeit in a much smaller cluster.
Yeah.
2,000 chips, even today, still would cost about $80 million.
Yeah.
To just own, not the compute portion of that we're used to train them, but the owning and operating those chips. And even for a cluster of 2,000 chips, which would be roughly two superpods. So one superpod is 1,024. Two
Okay.
superpod clusters, that's not a trivial feat of engineering. And it takes into account incredibly sophisticated networking devices and connectors. So I think that sort of muddying the water of what decentralized compute really means and delivers, and what DeepSeek has done, which is really extracting and harnessing a lot of the AI power from inferential compute. But inferential compute still from a centralized source, and I think so Exabits we sort of push back on that and say look it's an efficiency gain and a centralized method. The scalability the scaling law still remains, which means we'll continue to see in order for us for developers to really push the boundary of AI models, they're going to want to see more and more compute, albeit in a much more efficient way, consumed to make that happen.
Okay, got it. And also would love to know your thoughts on the current scenario of DAI. Like thousands of companies are building different stuff. Many of them are just focusing on launching tokens with no product, nothing. So what are your overall take about the current whole agentic scenario going on right now?
Well, so I think the idea of agentic AI economy is very real. That's a real concept, and it makes a ton of sense that if one side of the marketplace is deploying AI incredibly efficiently to the point that there are work processes and the interfaces, it's very hard to distinguish between man and machine. The best response function to that side of the economy is also to use and deploy your own AI. Not
Yeah.
for a human to interact with an AI all the time, but an AI that's bespoke to your preferences, to your decision-making process, and for that to then be deployed and have this AI interaction. So I think that concept and business model is very much real. But as we've seen in the crypto markets, there are some bad actors that try to just game the system
Hmm.
by launching tokens and programs that really don't have any real economics backing their launches. And unfortunately, I think investors and crypto enthusiasts should watch out for them. But I guess some of them are sort of are cynical and they're looking at them as sort of there are other dumber people that are looking at this. So let me just get out where the pump is good. But
Yeah.
it's a big speculative, risky gamble.
Got it, got it. And now coming towards the last question of this session. So specifically, how do you see the future of exhibits and what more advancements can we get to see within the product?
Yes. So, we see ourselves as intimate partners of the AI revolution.
Okay.
And, we have our stake very deeply, buried in the ground that compute at the end of the day is going to be the most important and the scarce resource in the development of AI. So we're very excited, and I think we're still only scratching the surface of what artificial intelligence can deliver for us. Um, we're excited to see, and we're very happy to build out the AI infrastructure, and welcome very healthy competition. And even though in the beginning it was very uncertain with lots of question marks when Deepseek was introduced, but that's like another very exciting advancement and progress we see where a lot of efficiencies are now being discovered, and that really ultimately means greater social welfare for the users at the end of the day.
Correct. Got it, got it. So thanks for giving so much insights about exhibits and the whole DAI ecosystem. And it's very great to hear from exhibits actually. And we personally are following you guys very closely, and we are very excited for what more advancements you guys bring to the protocol and the whole product. So thanks a lot again for coming on the podcast.
Great. Thank you for having me.